gotten a bad rap for being used for money laundering. But we all know that traditionally cash is the number one instrument used for money laundering. We know for a fact that the banks have been the number one institutional grouping used by money launderers. We've seen banks, be fined by regulators for significant money laundering. The biggest banks in the world, from Standard Charter, having to pay 265 billion and that's with a B for money laundering. Recently, as 2020, Goldman Sachs having to pay fines almost to $4 billion for money laundering. So, I feel like one of the things that we must do, to be fair, all the questions that we have of cryptocurrency and the cryptocurrency space, which are justified questions, in my opinion, should be also applied to the traditional systems.
Okay, well, thank you very much. What I want to transition to now is to talk about the crypto scams, like what, because again, we want to educate people and let them know that there's no point in demonizing crypto, right? But we want to help people be able to take the look left, look right. So can you kind of help people see what is fact from not fact? Dominique, Al, you wanna jump in there? I know our investigator is investigating something, so you want to take the lead there?
Yeah, I would say that there are certain key things that, as investors, as people entering this space, we need to look at when we are seeking to invest in any instrument, whether it's crypto, whether it's property, whether it's, any of the other blessing circles or whatever is the case. It's necessary to do your research and to look at the properties around this so-called, cryptocurrency. Not because you put a steering wheel on a horse makes it a car. So a lot of these things are calling themselves cryptocurrencies, but they are in fact not. Anybody can create a token on a blockchain. That does not automatically give it value. So some of the things that I tell people to look for is, the level of centralization, the level of distribution of the token, how many wallets hold the particular token. If there is a large amount of the token held with the team, those are red flags immediately. They look at the liquidity of the token in terms of its trading pairs on the decentralized exchanges. Those would raise red flags as well. But people need to be more responsible in seeking out the information before throwing their hard-earned money into something, and those are the facts. And yes, regulators can play a part in that, but at the end of the day, we need people to hold themselves to personal responsibility as to what they do with their funds.
Definitely, I want to hitchhike on what Akron was saying, because unfortunately in the Caribbean, because of some willful ignorance, I believe, on our part, there are a lot of scammers there. So I've had experiences where I've spoken to people, try to educate them about Bitcoin and and how it works and so on, and then they would have basically informed me that somebody messaged them someday from some unknown number and asked them if they want to get $100,000 in 2 days and all kind of things, and they accepted, and the person told them all you need to do is to send your money to this, that, and the third. And I'm saying to myself, I think the fundamental issue goes beyond willful ignorance. I think one of the issues are that people are desperate. And when you have a desperate population and you are not educating them about the ways in which they can really help themselves, then they're going to be susceptible to these scams. I've encountered a lady who said she got scammed for almost $10,000. When I heard that there, I was blown away. And she herself is trying to get back some of her money. She can't get it back. And I think what needs to be done, especially after panels like this, which is so important with ECCB and FCIB and all these different institutions, is for us to do a bigger push in the communities around the Caribbean to help people to understand and to detect the red flags when it comes to investing, when it comes to cryptocurrencies. As Alcron rightly said, cryptocurrencies, a lot of them are just tokens, but there's no real intrinsic value in what they're doing. There are people who could, anybody could create a token at any point in time and call it a cryptocurrency. So the issue there is really helping people going down to their level and having these kind of sessions in communities, in community centers, in churches, in schools. But what we need to do is, because a lot of people are being scammed throughout this pandemic. People are desperate. This is an environment of people being desperate. And if we don't capitalize on helping people, there are going to be worse repercussions than we've been seeing up to this point.
Jason?
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight something that Dominic said, right? I think red flags, are key. So anything that tells you that you're getting guaranteed returns, that should be a big red flag. There's no such thing as free money. So if you're getting free money, that's also another red flag, and if you're getting anybody claiming, that we can turn around, if you invest, we can, give you some large percentage on return on that investment. Those are the sort of things that you should be skeptical about. Another thing is, and this goes beyond crypto or beyond, any of these scams associated with crypto, but just in general. Why would somebody that you don't know reach out to you and offer to give you money? It just doesn't work that way, right? So, those are the sort of things that should, flag for somebody that, look, this is probably not what it seems, and there's lots of information on the internet. You do a search, you can find out most of these scams, you can find information about them on the internet. So if somebody is reaching out to you and offering you, a large payout that's guaranteed, go online and do some research. You will find that 9 out of 10 times you will find something there that's pointing it to be a scam, right? So I just wanted to add to that bit on the red flags.
Okay, great. I want to move on to the last topic, unless anyone else wants to speak to this one. Hi, Randy. Randy, I see your hand is up. Your audio is
yes.
not...
I will just switch my audio on.
Yeah, we can't hear you now. Something's up with the audio.
Okay, can you hear me now?
With a significant echo.
Okay, 1 minute. Just a statement.
Okay, all right. NFTs and DeFi. Can we talk about those? They've been around for a few years, but they're getting a lot of press recently. Can we speak to those? I'll dominate. I feel like as if those are in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we want to break down the acronyms. NFTs meaning non-fungible tokens, and DeFi meaning the decentralized financial environment. And non-fungible tokens are are just basically tokens stored on the blockchain. It's data stored on the blockchain, and the data can be in the form of a JPEG, a picture, a video, an audio file, or a contract for that matter.
But Al, sorry to interject, but I like that example you had. It was really illuminating for me. So can you?
Yeah. So I do have my dollar bills here, issued by the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is what I use to explain what fungible is. So this dollar bill and this dollar bill are fungible. What does that mean? Is that they are easily exchangeable for each other. One's value is the same as the other's value. Now, had this dollar bill been signed by LeBron James or Michael Jackson, it now changes the value of this dollar bill to myself or other people out there, right? Because a lot of people will value having that autographed dollar bill. So if I were to lose this dollar bill that has the signature, it cannot be easily replaced by this one. So you might find that I may need to insure this for some perceived value because it cannot just simply be replaced by this. And now this dollar bill has now become non-fungible, meaning it can no longer be simply exchanged for another similar dollar bill. And that's the case, and that's why I think NFTs, the application has been most adopted by art and artists, whether it be music artists, physical artists, motion artists, because art is one of those things that one painting does not have the same value as another painting, or may not have the same value to its owner, even if it's a copy of the same painting. So we are seeing NFTs growing in popularity because the creative industries are the ones driving the use case around it. And oftentimes the creative industry is representative of celebrities who have large networks of communities who they can influence. So that's why I think we've seen the boom in NFTs. However, I think NFTs and their use cases are going to be expanded tremendously to take into account, things like identification cards, university certificates, concert tickets, which we are seeing already in use, and any sort of structure that involves engagement with community. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have Massy. People have Massy cards, and you get Massy points when you go to the supermarket. And that is a form of tokenized loyalty. Caribbean Airlines offers points. American Airlines offers points. Those are forms of tokenizing loyalty. And I think all those different systems of tokenized loyalty will be consumed or subsumed by NFTs and by cryptocurrency as a whole. So I'll leave Dominic to speak on DeFi, since I've spoken quite a bit on NFT.
I actually was hoping you were going to speak on DeFi because I still very new to DeFi. So
All right, okay.
But it's sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so DeFi is basically just a decentralized financial environment, and it can take the shape of any of our traditional financial services. So whether it be banking, whether it be investments, whether it be insurance, and it basically just allows for the use of smart contract to execute on some of the services that we currently expect centralized organizations like banks to do. So, for example, people always ask, what's the intrinsic value of cryptocurrency? Now, we operate in financial systems where, for example, a transfer between one account to another account, there is a fee charge or there is some lapse time there. And in that charging of that fee, a value between that transaction is extracted by a third party. In the decentralized environment, most times that value that would have been extracted by a third party is now shared by the participants. So instead of paying $4 for a transfer to a bank, that is now shared between the sender and the receiver of the transaction. So that is another area in the space that I think we are going to see a tremendous level of growth. I think that we are going to see more traditional players come into the space and take advantage of the DeFi environment to bring efficiency to their traditional structures. So I don't see it necessarily going away and removing the centralized structures or making the banks dinosaurs. But what I see is that, banks will have to adapt, as we are seeing, with Sagicor Bank doing in the region.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to add towards the conversation of the NFTs. My only issue with NFTs, to be honest, I wary of it is that just about anyone can create a digital file and call it an NFT. And whether or not they have like the rights for the actual thing
And that
in the
speaks
first
to the
place.
scam factor that
Right,
we were
and
mentioning earlier.
correct, and that's my only fear. I mean, I believe in it, but my only fear is that, right? But I think it's great for people who are professional meme experts that like to create memes. This is their time to shine, to have
Well,
NFTs and whatnot. But go ahead,
Well,
Alfred.
what I would say is that in a free market, capital seeks the most effective way to protect and
Yep.
to duplicate itself. So consumers are the ones determining the value of these NFTs, right? And we're very early on in the process, and unfortunately or fortunately, there's a great deal of speculation around digital art, NFT communities, and membership clubs and all these varying things. However, there is real value being executed. I mean, coming up tomorrow, Thursday, we have the first ever Metaverse Fashion Week being held, and we have companies like Dolce & Gabbana, Paco Rabanne, Tommy Hilfiger, and we have even a regional designer, Ania Ayongchi and Wildflower, taking part in the Metaverse Fashion Week. And we are seeing these brands seeing opportunities to share their art and their creations in the digital space, because more and more we are moving towards a digital space. 3-5 years ago, this conference would have been in person, and we would have all had to fly into one location, and everybody would have to pay because we would have to rent out a conference hall and all of that. What we are seeing is that the digital world that we are moving in and living in has allowed us to experience life in these virtual and pseudo-physical environments, and people are going to take advantage of that. NFTs will be used by brands to verify and validate their physical art, because now, instead of buying a bootleg Jordan, it may come with an NFT that validates that is an original Jordan. Now, if you buy the Jordan without the NFT that validates it, that's entirely up to you. You want to scam yourself. If it doesn't come together, then you know that this may not be the real thing. So people have to do their own research. People have to take personal responsibility, especially when it comes to new technology, just as we should have done when in the early stages of the internet, just as we should have done in the early stages of the telephone, just as we should have done in the early stages of the printing press. So all new technology is going to come with individuals looking to take advantage via nefarious means. So people have to be, vigilant.
Correct. And to add to what Alcron is saying too, for those who are a little curious, NFT basically they are built on the blockchain platform. So you basically would encode, your digital asset is stored and it's recorded. So it's almost similar to how we have the cryptocurrency system set up on the blockchain. Just in case anyone wanted that info.
So before we open up for Q&A, because I'm conscious of the time, Ali spoke of the Fashion Week and the application to the Caribbean. How is this playing out in the Caribbean? We've spoken about CBDCs in the Caribbean leading the world as the first, a number of firsts. But in terms of NFTs and DeFi and even initial coin offerings, cryptos that are originated in the Caribbean, can the panel, I open to the panel to speak to what you're seeing at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the pleasure through my company and the benefit through my company to work with a lot of regional projects, and through my podcast, and I'm going to make a shameless plug here. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. on YouTube, I'm having a conversation with Anya and Stephen Hadid, who is the CEO of Creator Labs, who did the actual digital work behind the project. And we're going to be talking about their role in the Metaverse Fashion Week, which is being hosted by Decentraland. But there are projects like Anya's that are building in this space. We have, Bridge Finance, which is a project coming out of Barbados, which is, going to be, in my opinion, a huge project. We have NFT projects like, Days Ducks, which has had tremendous success, launched early this year, January 1st this year, and already having tremendous success. It's been, touted as the Bored Ape Yacht Club of the Caribbean. We have people in the region who are working as developers at OpenSea. We have people who are building on Lightning Network for some of the biggest companies in the world. We have people who are advising big companies in the space. I myself, I've done work with TrustSwap, which is a $100 million US company. We have big companies coming out of Barbados like Alti, like Bit Global. Gabriel is doing tremendous stuff. So there are a lot of people in the Caribbean who are doing yeoman's work. I mean, a lot of groups, big up George Moses and Omega. There are a lot of people who are doing the heavy lifting as individuals and in small groups. What we need to see is the governments jump on board, support these people, seek the information from the people who know, right? We have too many people who just don't know and are seemingly embarrassed to say that they don't know and unwilling to get the information. But for the first time in my life, I think the Caribbean is in a position where we don't have to wait to participate in new technology, in this new technological environment. We already have the internet, we already have access to digital devices. Let's participate, let's run ahead, let's continue to build, let's continue to grow. Why can't the next Binance be founded in the Caribbean? Why can't the next, XRP come out of the Caribbean? Why can't the next Cardano come out of the Caribbean? Why can't the next Ethereum be built by a 15-year-old in Antigua? And we need to be brave enough, and our regulators, our governments, to take a word out of the US President Biden's last statement on cryptocurrency. They need to find a way to innovate responsibly around cryptocurrency and not be fearful of it.
Good words. Jason, Kieran, any other thoughts before we go to Q&A?
I
would.
Sorry, go ahead, Kieran.
All right. No, well, I would like to. I've been looking at some of the comments and just to what we'd like to leave in the mind of the audience and why I am on this panel when we think of demystifying cryptocurrencies, and to sort of underscore that the central bank digital currency is not a cryptocurrency. So by the end of our discussion here this evening, I hope that will be clear. And we as the central bank, and as there are 80 plus central banks piloting this, and I just wanted to highlight, why are they doing it? There are some central banks doing retail CBDCs, like Dcash. It's for payment, is an alternative means of payment, another payment option. Dcash is not, our policy does not provide for Dcash to be used for investing. And it does not earn interest, like your physical cash is in your wallet, it earns no interest. So the central bank is not moving into the crypto space. We are leveraging the technology, blockchain technology. It does utilize cryptography. It has several beautiful features in terms of traceability, recoverability, all these wonderful security features that we're using to enable us to digitize our own EC dollar as a payment option. Now back to my point on cash is king. Cash is king now. When we think of buying goods and services, persons prefer to pay with cash than with credit. As well, in everyday transactions, this is the context within which I was saying it, not in terms of investing where we know there are persons with significant wins when they trade cryptocurrencies. If you're looking, it depends on what your risk appetite is and what your investment policy or what your motivation is for investing. You may not choose cash, which, I mean, the returns on that is a total different ballgame. So within the context of the cash and the digital version vis-a-vis the physical cash, I'm looking at when paying for goods and services. Even when you think of the 1987 stock market crash, when the market crashes, when the prices of investment is high, interest rates are high, persons do resort to using cash. And from that context, I just wanted to share a bit of view on that. Thank you.
Thanks for
One
the
jump into
clarification.
the Q&A.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
One
the
question to
clarification.
Kiran, if I can. Kiran, I just wanted to know if the ECCB had given any consideration to integration of Dcash with other financial institutions, for example, exchanges, as a means of their citizens being able to onboard to the cryptocurrency markets. So not necessarily as a form of investment, but a means of entering, on-ramping and off-ramping from the cryptocurrency environment. Has that been considered?
For now, I would say no. Right now, the digital currency, we're pioneering this, it's new. We're piloting it based on the issues in the financial system, and some of the key issues I would have highlighted up front, like it's more for retail use for goods and services, and it's only being used within the ECCU, right, during the phase of the pilot. We know there are other jurisdictions and there are questions in terms of, will I be able to use Dcash to invest on the exchange or the market like you're asking? These use cases, they're something for the long-term future for consideration, and just piloting for now for retail use, everyday transactions. That's the focus. There's also the question of whether in terms of wholesale, there are wholesale, what we call wholesale CBDCs, so that because of the corresponding issues, banking issues that we face in the ECCU, right? De-risking, where some of the banks are losing that relationship with foreign banks. And this is a very talked about area. So even before that, that one may be a lower hanging fruit to enable different, to transact and between central banks, intra-central bank transactions. There are a few central banks globally who are testing a platform to enable one CBDC to be exchanged for another. And that sort of cuts out some of the intermediary and of course of the risk of loss of correspondent banking relationships. So for now, this is the pilot, this is the scope we're operating within.
Okay, thank you. Jason, you were going to say something?
So I was going to say just that, as we to wrap it all up, I think all institutions, banks, central banks, etc., in the near future will be considering, how do we safely engage in leveraging the blockchain, leveraging cryptocurrency. I say safely because, as everybody knows, banks are heavily regulated. There are lots of reasons why banks cannot just jump into crypto. There's the KYC component of it, etc. But I think as we move forward and as technology becomes more available, it will be easier for all of us to be able to move into that space and make it and democratize it, make it a lot more available for all and sundry to leverage. But that's something that will take changes in regulation, as well as significant investment. So it will happen over time and in a short time frame. I don't anticipate this is 10 years out or 5 years out, but it is something that we have to work towards.
Okay, thank you. No, we have 10 minutes left. And I'm opening up the Q&A. The first point I see is any plans of trading Dcash on crypto exchanges. And I think Kieran already addressed that. It's not a crypto. It's not a crypto. It's going to be distributed via the commercial banks, and keep me honest, Kieran, via credit unions, fintechs, and so forth. But it's not a cryptocurrency, but it's a digital representation of fiat currency. Correct, Kieran? I got it right?
Correct. And it's like asking if you would take your physical cash and trade it. It's not being traded anywhere. And more so, the EC currency is not a hard currency like the US or greenback, they call it in the international Forex markets. Just wanted to plug that in.
Okay, thank you. You're very popular in the QA. The next one is, how are law enforcement able to access information on clients who are under money laundering investigations? Are utilizing the Dcash system? It goes on, for example, I'm conducting a money laundering investigation in Dominica involving a businessman who was registered to use Dcash and has done several transactions on that platform. How could I get that data? Is the data held by the local bank or the ECCB? That feels like an interesting question. I think that should be a one-on-one, but you up to you, Kieran. You're the central banker.
Broadly, an overview. What I can advise is Dcash is operating within the ambit of the current regulations in terms of KYC, AML, CFT regulations. So if there is an investigation, the same channels for getting information have to be followed. As well, in terms of, I think the question certainly hints at personal data. Who has access to it? Is it being protected? Only the user's financial information, their financial institution has access to their personal data. And this is where data is encrypted on the network. So your personal data where it's stored as well. If there is an investigation going on, despite it being encrypted, if we need to source the information, that can be done as it pertains now, a court of law or under investigation by the authorities, our law enforcement personnel here, the request is done and the data can be retrieved. So we do follow the highest standards in terms of GDPR requirements, and we are operating in terms of data protection according to the laws that currently exist.
Thank you. So that will answer the next question. Dcash registry, is it or can be a link to both a legal person or a natural person? So I think you answered that there. Another one, will the ECC allow the purchase of crypto? No, that's not what the central bank is for, because at that rate, when will they finally do months or year? No. So I'm answering for you. ECCB will not, well, sorry. I'm taking it in the wrong context. The question is, will the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank allow in the regulation the purchase and transaction of crypto? So that's another one for you, Kieran. I don't want to speak for you.
But the central bank
I don't want to say no.
The central bank regulates the EC currency. Our ambit and authority, we're the sole authority for that. We do not regulate investment or securities markets. There's a separate regulator for that. And beyond that, each territory does have their local financial services commissions, which also regulates some aspect of it. There is a lot of reforms going on right now, which will bring about some changes, but as a central bank, we would not be regulating that type of activity.
Okay, great. See another question. How soon will the Eastern Caribbean digital currency be launched? I believe it's launched already.
Yes, it is launched. We will be moving into our final territory in the coming quarter. We are operating in all 7. There are at least 280 merchants who have signed up so far, so persons can conduct transactions with those. Based on the latest update, we have at least 4,000 users on the network. And currently, in terms of the amount of Dcash in circulation, the last estimate was at least 2.2 million EC dollars. That I can share.
Okay, thank you. I think this question is suited for you, Jason, Mr. Kinch. What options are available in Barbados for investing in cryptocurrencies? Do local banks allow you to transfer money to regulated crypto exchanges like Binance?
So well, I would have to say that at this point in time, most banks, their compliance departments are not very, what's the term? They're not very permissive in terms of dealing with crypto. It has a lot to do with things to do with like source of funds and ownership of funds, etc. So I would say at the moment, no, they don't allow it. However, as things change and as regulations change, as the regulations outside of the region change, we will be seeing, I think, banks in that space, allowing people to be able to actively participate in crypto exchanges.
Thank you. I have a data privacy question. What about data privacy legislation in the OECS territories? Or are they simply following the GDPR? What about the rights of data subjects? I am going to go back to you, Kieran, on that one, about data privacy. Are you basing your data privacy on GDPR? I'm thinking that most jurisdictions around the world are using that as a baseline, or at least a reference point, because everywhere their European citizen defines are so high, we want to make sure that the guidance you give to your citizenry at least has that covered. But over to you.
Yes, and thanks for that, George. What I would add is, yes, we are doing that, and it will take some time, and there are deficiencies that have been noted within the ECCU in terms of data privacy. So there's a lot of work undergoing in that regard, and we are following the strictest guidelines. With the central bank, I could speak for, in terms of our operations as a central bank, speaks for itself. And we have been operating for 40 years, a very stable institution. And based on the integrity and what we do, we manage the currency, which has been quite stable for the last so many years. And privacy of data, confidentiality, cybersecurity, this is something that we watch very, very closely. The network we've designed is very robust to ensure that data is, privacy is maintained. So these key aspects were not taken leniently. And by the very nature of our CBDC, the type of blockchain we've chosen is the Hyperledger Fabric, and it's a permission base. All users can be verified and the data is encrypted. So that I could speak to clearly, and I know there's a lot of work going on in the region to improve our data privacy laws. But we do follow the strictest guidelines. That would be, we default to the GDPR, as I would have mentioned earlier.
Yeah, thank you. Randy, you have a hand up? Is that a new hand or an old hand?
A new hand, Mr. Thomas. I got my audio rectified.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions there from the chat. One is directed at you, Mr. Thomas, and the question is whether your bank or the digital bank will facilitate the purchase of cryptocurrencies by credit or debit cards. So that is the question.
And my response to that is going to be very careful. And I'm going to say that we are going to be aligned with whatever guidance the regulator dictates to us, right? As soon as the regulator tells us we are capable of doing something, we will be doing it. But that's how I'm going to respond to that question. We're a regulated entity with a new banking license, and we're not trying to do anything interesting. to jeopardize that. It wouldn't make sense. Yeah. What
Okay,
was the other
no
question?
problem. The second question is to the panel. And the question is, what impact will the recent executive order signed by President Biden of the US on digital currencies or cryptocurrencies have on the Caribbean? So it's an open question to the panel. I don't know if Mr. Wright wants to jump on.
Well, I mean, I think one of the challenges that has kept the masses from coming into the cryptocurrency space is a lack of clear understanding about the regulatory considerations. So I think that executive order, which kind of points certain regulators in the US to take a lead on clarifying those things, I think ultimately it will lead to the growth of the space, because a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines, kind of just waiting to get clarity on how to participate, including financial institutions like banks. And I think a lot of regional banks and regional corporations are kind of waiting to see what the US does and what some of the bigger territories do, because they have to interact with those organizations. So I think once we get some regulatory clarity, I think it would bode well for the growth of the space in general.
Thank you, thank you. Randy, any other points, questions?
No, there was another, well, there's another question, but it's directed at Ms. St. Omer. It's in the Q&A, but it's addressing the Gcash. And the question limits is, what are the limits? Yeah, what are the limits to moving cash via Gcash? Or are there any limits?
What are the transaction limits? I imagine that should read, right?
Yes, that's the question.
Volumes and velocities, like how frequently you can perform transactions and how big can the transactions be individually and the total in a period of time.
Thanks for that. There are no transaction limits and there are no fees during the pilot as well. In terms of consumers like yourselves and myself, the minimum, we have wallet limits, that's at 1,000 EC, and it can be as high as, just let me double check this. It could be as high as, just checking, 20,000 in the case of individuals. And for merchants, small businesses, it starts at 25 and could be as high as 300,000 in terms of the wallet limits for transacting.
Okay, thank you. There's another data protection question. Is there a mechanism for the registration of data controllers and data protection officers? And how is data privacy enforced among business? I will answer the second part. Each company, established companies that has a cybersecurity framework, if you will, governance, will put in place controls that align with their regulatory body if they're regulated, or if they're dealing with significant end users, they'll want to at least make sure that they're aligned with the Data Protection Act of the country they're in, or at a minimum aligned with GDPR. And you see now, and you see the difference in this is a relatively new thing, because this has come up in the last 5 years, 6 years. I suspect it was triggered by events in 2016, where heavy awareness came about. And what year did GDPR come into play? 2018 or 2019? I don't remember. But this is still a very new area for businesses, small and large. And what I would say is you're going to see a lot more people requiring opt-ins to utilize persons' data that is accumulated. So the customer or the client is going to have to, you'll have verbiage, or you have them click a checkbox and say, yes, you can use my information to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. However, I cannot speak to the mechanism for the registration of data controls and data protection officers. There are CISOs and typically, which are cybersecurity or computer information system security officers. And they usually need to have the necessary industry certifications to get such jobs. Other than that, I do not know of a regulated mechanism for positioning persons in such jobs. If anyone on the panel is aware, please feel free. I mean, Jason, you Kieran, even Dominic, Al, feel free.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any regulated way of registering, data controllers and data protection officers at this point. I mean, I think it is currently, unless the government has a data protection act and therefore a data protection office, where they have a data governor, data controller, that sort of chief data officer. I'm not aware of any particular thing mechanism to register data controllers.
Which is not to say it doesn't exist, but these are new things that have just come up in the past couple of months, year or so. So maybe something we should do some research on. Randy, I see your hand again.
Yes, just a further question. It's from the chat, but I also added a certain question. And the question is mainly about fear. Okay, and as we know, the cryptocurrency is a new technology, and a lot of persons are fearful of coming in because of a lot of uncertainties. Okay, so the question is mainly, are there policing or law enforcement capabilities in the crypto space, right? Can persons feel confident in delving into considering cryptocurrency developments? So I don't know if anybody want to just to appease or to ease the fear that is associated with cryptocurrency, because as we know, it was initially being advertised as an illegal or unlawful investment only used by criminals. So I don't know if I see.
Well, the truth is, and this is why we want to have this to destigmatize it. That couldn't be further from the truth. Crypto is not, that there's some talk out there about that, but the reality is that most persons who get into crypto are doing so to just like you would get into the stock market, right? Or the FX market, right? Or persons who use it as an exchange, a store of value. Again, it's and that would be more of the what do you call them, the innovators, let us just say. It is because it's convenient. So I think sessions like these, and all of us, I think, are unanimously saying that there is nothing wrong with crypto. No more, sir, than there's nothing wrong with a gun in your hand, because you're a law enforcement officer, and I'm sure, you know what I mean. But in someone else's hand, it could be questionable, right? And that's what we want to bring out. That's what this is about. I've seen a lot of chatter in the chat where I really, that's another misconception I want to clear up. We are not here to speak against negatively about crypto, just like we're not here to say that the ECCB is issuing a crypto, right? So if there's a second thing that you leave here with, is this group here is to have an open dialogue and discourse about cryptocurrency, the current state of crypto in the Caribbean, and what are the opportunities to safely transact. Now, if a fraud has been committed, then local law enforcement is engaged. And you're going to you are going to see a beefing up of that and more focus around the specific types of crimes. As unfortunate, our colleague is actually working with US law enforcement on a crime scene right now. I'm chasing down some hints he's not been able to present. Randy, you want to ask another question? You want to raise another point? See your hand up again.
No, I was just adding to what you were saying. And again, it's unfortunate that Mr. Larkin is unable to join because he's actually out on an active investigation. But from a law enforcement perspective, and again, with the rolling out of regulations and market clarity or legal clarity, persons should be in a position to know that there are existing territories and exhibiting proper controls and law enforcement mechanisms in the cryptocurrency sphere. And I could direct you to some news experts on from the NCA in the UK and the FBI in the US, where they recovered multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar cryptocurrency assets which were stolen, which were defrauded from persons, and those funds are going to be repatriated to the respective owners. And again, I think that is one of the areas where persons need to understand that whilst we are not here to spread any fear, okay, it's about education and sensitization, okay? But again, it's on you to go and read and do your market research and do your reading and your learning.
Agreed. And it's just like getting into the Forex market, or if you don't understand how to play the Forex market, you're going to lose your shirt quickly, right? If you don't understand how to read, if you want to take positions in Google, any stock, in the New York Stock Exchange or any of the stock markets, if you do not understand the game, if you're just going to speculate and take a risk, well then, you know, even if you're educated, you only invest what you can afford to lose, right? Because it is a chance that you're taking. So, like I said, I see some of the persons on the chat thinking that we are trying to say, there's something wrong with crypto. I am not saying, I've never heard anybody say that on this panel. What we're doing is we're homing in on some of the themes that are out there, and we want people to understand that there is a safe way to play and do really well in this space. There's certain processes and there's certain education that persons in general need to have about crypto, and in terms of being online anyway, right? Certain hygiene that you have to follow, right? Look left, look right, and look left again, and you know, educate yourself. I think that we are out of time. I think we're about 13 minutes over. Unless there are any other comments, Randy, any other questions that were posed that you've picked up, any of the team wants to leave any parting comments before we hand over to Commander Roberts?
The only thing I would say as we leave persons, you know, is just with some of the things you hear all the time in this space. You know, do your own research. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And, you know, I will leave everyone with a story. There's a famous US bank robber by the name of Willie Sutton. And when he was finally caught, and when he was asked, you know, why he robs banks, he simply said, because that's where the money is. So I think people need to be aware that wherever there is value, the people seeking that value will come. So if you as an individual know you have money invested, you have crypto invested, take steps to protect yourselves. One of the greatest benefits of cryptocurrency is that you have the opportunity to be your own bankers. One of the greatest drawbacks to cryptocurrency is you have the benefit of being your own bankers. So all the things that you expect from a banker in terms of safety, in terms of security, those responsibilities now fall on you, and you have to take those responsibilities very seriously. And like you said, George, you know, be safe out there.
Exactly. And I want to say this, the reason why regulators are going to slowly open the strings, you got to understand that innovation usually leads to regulation. It is the force of innovators that cause regulators to reflect, opine, and then make changes if necessary. Because in government and in regulators, it is the overall safety of the populace. And if the doors are open too quickly, at the end of the day, it may be a small percentage of persons that get burned, but these burns are sometimes severe. And who is going to take the blame, right? At the end of the day, right? Any of us here who go into the crypto space, we know what we're doing. We're going to go and we're going to take our risk, and it's on us. We win, we lose, right? I'm not confessing to anything. misregulator. But I'm just saying, we do what we do, and we know what we're doing, and we speculate. But the average person, the elderly person that is risking part of their life savings, that's a thing, and that's where the issues come, right? So I'm sure that, and I know that the central banks are all studying. That's why you're seeing the national digital ID programs. That's why you're seeing the CBDC programs, because that is the governments and the regulatory authorities dipping the toe in the water and learning the space, understanding how things are evolving. And in the future, you will see developments, but it's again, innovators often provide the energy that drives regulators and governments to adjust, adopt, and you know, gently open the doors. So I want to turn over Randy and Commander Roberts. I want to turn it over to you for closing remarks, unless the panelists want to say anything in closing. I think we got it. Over to you, Commander.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks very much. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Regional Security System to have hosted this webinar and to offer a brief vote of thanks. Now, this evening's panel discussion was centered on the topic cryptocurrencies in the Caribbean, making sense of Bitcoin, crypto assets, and blockchain. It was indeed our pleasure to host the second event in our series of planned panel discussions on topics of national, regional, and global importance. Now, the goal of this webinar was to sensitize and build public awareness about cryptocurrencies and Dcash amongst security, law enforcement sectors, financial sector, as well as the average citizen in our region. For those who don't know much about the RSS, just permit me to guess very briefly who we are, what we're about. Now, the RSS is a sub-member security alliance, which was established in 1982 by a memorandum of understanding to provide a collective response to security threats to a sub-region. In a nutshell, we are like a mini NATO. The RSS Treaty was later signed in 1996, giving the organization full legal status. Our mission is to ensure the stability and well-being of member states through mutual cooperation in order to maximize regional security in preserving the social and economic development of our people. Luckily for us, this year we are celebrating our 40th anniversary, and you are invited to visit our website at www.rss.org.bb to learn more about us. Now, with respect to this topic, I thought this discussion was timely, given the topical nature of cryptocurrencies and its rapid expansion in recent times. Sadly, not enough is known about it by the average person. And this presentation here, this session here this afternoon certainly would have enlightened us and give us much more information, make us much more aware of what it's all about, and help us in making safe and intelligent decisions or choices. I'm happy that we were lucky to bring together some of the best regional minds in this specialized field to speak to you on this fascinating topic. Many thanks, first of all, to our moderator, Mr. George Thomas. Congratulations, sir, on your recent appointment to head up the Sagicor Bank. Well done, we're proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
Happy to have had you on board to lead this effort and share your experiences. I thank you for managing the session well, ensuring that the panelists had good opportunities to discuss the topics and keeping check of the time to ensure we stayed on track. Well done. As we say in the Coast Guard, bravo Zulu, well done. To the panelists, Ms. Kiran St. Omar, Mr. Jason Kinch, Mr. Dominic Merritt, and Mr. Al Kiran, I hope I got that correctly, right. Thanks to all of you for your wonderful insights and sharing with us about cryptocurrency. Thank you all for agreeing to participate in this RSS hosted webinar and for demystifying the whole crypto issue. We thank you for a very interesting and educational discussion, not only about crypto, but also Dcash. Special thanks to you, Ms. Omar, for explaining the difference between Dcash and cryptocurrencies. And we're happy too that You're the first central bank to offer digital currencies, right? Through your Dcash mechanism. So we're happy for that, and we look forward to hearing greater things for you in the future. Once again, many thanks to the team for the great collaboration with RSS to make this all possible. And finally, to our special guests or viewers, I wish to thank you fully for participating and sharing your insights and your excellent questions. You were a fantastic audience. Thanks for the interest shown in this webinar. We would have, my last check earlier over the clock in the region of 145 viewers, so we're very happy that we had a good response. And I wish you all a very pleasant evening and looking forward to further engagements in the future. You can visit this, a recording of this session on our Facebook page, https://www.facebook.com/RSS Barbados. So just go to the RSS web Facebook page and you can view it at your leisure. Many thanks. God bless.